Welcome to MEDIMAGZA, the podcast where we bring you real conversations with intersections of healthcare, wellness, and everyday life. In today's episode, we're diving into a healthcare professional wellness space, the emotional, mental, and psychological load carried by the very people who care for others. Our guest today is Thuli Kakaza. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Clive.
Awesome. Tuli, let's start with your journey. What drew you into trauma counseling and employee wellness? And when did you realize that it was more than a job, it was your calling?
I think I'll start with the calling bit because that one is what came across, I think, a lot quicker. That happened in childhood. Interestingly, I'd always had a passion and an interest towards studying psychology. Then I just had a medical challenge in my matric year, so my mother wasn't comfortable with me going further than a reasonable radius. So the University of Fort Hare was over, UP or Nelson Mandela University, because I'm from a small town called King Williamstown in the Eastern Cape. And then while there, in studying social work, the first year I was like, what is this? I didn't even want this. And then failed my major, right? We go through a couple of hurdles as we move. And
Right.
then the second year, while repeating that, and in my second year of all my other modules, everything started to click for me, the sociology, the criminology, the psychology. I'm like, okay, I think I like it here. I see where the social work thing is going. The passion grew and expanded. At some point, my peers nominated me for the first female chair for the Social Work Students Association on campus. So I did that for the year, and it's in that space that I learned, okay, there's a leadership gene somewhere there. Then I was
Mm.
recruited into SASCO. So yes, we are a little political at times. So let me like it, right?
Yeah.
Did this for us years ago. So I dabbled a bit in that space and then later ventured into the field. So I always thought I'd work with young people initially, but the paths realigned, and I worked with young people in academic spaces, various to learning and performance, which later advanced into employee wellness. And in between serving, young and old and families and communities, I picked up as an African community, as a South African people, regardless now of race, we have trauma in
Yeah.
our childhood specifically. I was seeing a lot of it there, and also how we navigate life each day. And I think working with young adults and the grown-ups, it really is still this thing that we don't address, ACEs, adverse
Mm.
childhood experiences, re-manifest themselves. And that's when I started leaning more into trauma work. And I continue to annually or biannually attend a lot more developmental workshops around trauma so that I stay up to date with what's happening.
I love that. It's such an inspiring just journey that you've been on and how life chooses these paths for us. The emotional load of healthcare professionals, that's such an interesting topic. You work closely with people who carry a lot of emotionally, especially those in healthcare and high stress roles, okay? What are some of the most common emotional and psychological challenges that you see among healthcare professionals today?
I think one of the common ones, or I'll even use myself as an example in, with this one, where it's been quite a trying year, personal life, lost a sibling, brutally murdered. So then somewhere earlier was an incident with a client while in service. And from that, what I realize is that we really underestimate the significance of post-care. And even with the rallied support around me, my community, the healthcare professionals, the non-healthcare professionals, and even with therapy, because I definitely needed that. In between, I picked up that honestly, more than anything, we don't do well with post care. It's a very much a tick box, and it's difficult for us who provide the service to remember this. Oh, it's supposed to be this way. You kind of like figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
Trying to navigate those. What is it? Something's missing. I just can't put my finger on it to help get me back on track, help me tap back into my resilience capacity. And it's that post care. We talk about prevention. We're very loud about
Mm.
prevention. Awareness campaigns are all about that. We talk about mediation. That's, where we're in, something happened. Let's work through it. But what about after? How
Yeah.
do we know you're doing okay
Yeah.
after? Is there check-ins after?
Yeah.
So I think that aspect is a large chunk where we just assume, well, you went for your 3 sessions or your 4 sessions and you should be fine. But
Yeah.
there is an after. that time period of just checking in. Are you okay? Are you still tapping into those, resilience capacities? Do we have policies of support around us? And more often than not, in academic, professional, and medical spaces, we find as healthcare professionals, those don't really exist for us. We're
Mm.
great at it for our clients and our patients, but they don't really exist much for us. And that's something I think I'm, starting to do a little more research and
Yeah.
investment into.
The age-old saying, do what I say and not what I do. So
Right.
I think it's so important to have these check-ins. And it brings me to the next question, Tuli. Trauma that doesn't look like trauma, okay? Many people like trauma is only linked to big dramatic events. In your work, what are
Yes.
some of the quieter and less obvious forms of trauma that show up in the workplace, especially in the healthcare settings?
Oof. I think, first off, I like to always reintroduce the term because it's a perceived threat. And it's about the mental imprint that that particular experience or incident leaves for you from a mental perspective as well as from a nervous system perspective. So it's stored in the mind through memory and stored in our bodies through the nervous system.
Mm,
And what happens for us as healthcare professionals within doing our work is, well, I handled the crisis, it's been managed, and then you go back in the same space, but you didn't consider what you handled was quite a lot. In the crisis mode, because we're problem solvers, that's what we're in the profession of doing. You patch the thing, patch the person, help solve the issue, and it's like, whew, made it through that. That was some scary stuff after. Like, it can be quite emotionally intense. You're like, okay, I need to ground, I need to process this. So I think one of the things is just the it's important for us to always know it's not personal. That memory, especially when dealing with clients in severe cases, and I guess from a medical perspective, that's going to be like really dramatic in terms of what you're seeing visually. From
yeah.
a mental health perspective, that's going to be the dramatic experience of the person. I mean, when you sit with them in the room, you watching them relive their trauma, and you can sometimes feel that person's pain, like this person is in so much pain. I wish I could just rip that off for you. I wish I could show you that's where that's coming from, that's where that's coming from, but that's not the job. I was just to hold space and help guide and allow the person to get to that resolve on their own by asking the right questions. So that grounding element comes in handy for us. It's not my story, it's their story.
Yeah.
I do get it though. I like to use the term I respect it, because also the getting it is a facade. In
Right.
reality, we don't really know what people go through. Even if you've been through something similar, it's always unique to you. And I
Yeah.
always educate my clients on that as well.
No,
So it's that aspect of remembering it's not your story, it's somebody else's story, and yours is to hold space. It is a role that you offer, and you also need your own safe space. So more often than not, I really don't often have issues where I carry client cases unless it's a very particular or peculiar case where it's like
yeah.
really thought provoking, a cluster diagnosis. How do I provide psychosocial support if they haven't gone backwards? How do I remind them, look, I need you to reconnect with a psychiatrist. I
Yeah.
need a whole multidisciplinary team. I'm calling people here like, hey, got
Yeah.
you a referral, talk to this person, let me know what you find, and let's work with the plan of what does the best form of support and care look like
Yeah.
is always important. Also, not doing it alone when you have a need to actually lean on your fellow specialists around you.
Yeah. I love that you say you're holding space and you respect their trauma. I think it's so important to not almost say to someone, yeah, no, I get you, I hear you, as opposed to saying, I can't imagine what you've gone through or how you've unpacked it as a person. Even though we've both had similar situations, it's never going to be the same. Moving on to,
Agreed.
I like to call this time of the year just end of year burnout. But when does burnout, what is burnout versus being tired? Burnout is a word we
Okay.
hear a lot, but it's often misunderstood. Now, how do you explain the difference between being stressed and being truly burnt out? And what are some of the early warning signs to HCPs kind of look out for?
Burnout, for one, happens predominantly in occupational spaces. Let's just start there because we use this term everywhere because we think we understand what it means. But burnout happens in occupational spaces. It has a lot to do with performativeness within an occupational role and the lack of support systems and policies in place that allow you to navigate and manage that. So that then leads to the lack, then leads to feelings of, what's the point of me doing this? Is it even good enough what I'm doing? Um, should I, what's the point of, going an extra mile? I'll just do bare minimum. I don't even like being here. Like, you just bare minimum, really. It's not, you losing capacity to continue to navigate because the load is too much and you've asked for help and nobody listened, and it's
Mm.
starting to, eat away at you. And then the stress of the reality of the load, again, if it's patients or clients, it's a lot, it's people's lives and the admin that comes with. So now my load is too much and nobody's heard me and nobody's assisting me and I'm trying. So my capacity starts to reduce, which means turnaround time is reduced, which means admin backlog, which means a variety of things. And then the manager comes and, why is this not done? Why is that not happening? Why is that, like, you can't explain again because you've been saying and nobody's really listening. So you kind of like take the hit, you endure.
Yeah.
And it's that constant, you endure and you endure and you endure. And it really just continues to chip away at, again, capacity levels, thought process. The term is, it was a training I attended, the term was around efficacy levels. Where do you have capacity to questioning yourself? Am I even good enough at what I'm doing then? If I can't
Mm.
even handle a basic load, but is the load basic? If
Right.
you'd already picked up that this is a bit much. So that lack of care and checking in is so important, and policies in place to make sure people are not taking on more than they can. In social work and with psychologists, I know there's usually a ratio number of how many people we are meant to be seeing per year on average. Now, in reality, it doesn't always translate.
Right.
But it is about, are there support systems? Is there a support network that helps us get there? So burnout is gradual and not just once off, as I've just highlighted. When it comes to now, you mentioned burnout and being tired. With
Mm.
tired, I'd say I've done, look, 6 hours or six support sessions in an 8 hour work day back to back for 3 days. Yeah, that's a lot. Okay. You heard so many stories, so many things, and it's not just listening to people, it's actually a social science, right?
Mm.
And it's also a psychological science. So you are popping up, oh, I need to use this theory. This is systems theory. This is family theory. Okay, this person has this number of issues. For this one, this is what I need to do. Okay, where do we start? What's important? What's the issue? And you have to do that for all these clients. Now, 6, 12, 18. That's 18 people in 3 days of 8 hours of those days. Again, not enough time.
Mm.
So those kind of things, then when now you're tired, your mind can't think well anymore. Physiologically, we start to experience that, the I'm forgetting things, the absent-mindedness. Now, that's fatigue and it's actually elevated levels of that kind of kicking in. But again, with burnout, it's chronic stress exposure over periods of time without mediation, support, or assistance. And you start to internalize them, self-doubt, self-question, therefore manifesting as lack of what presents as lack of performance, but ultimately it's the exhaustion
Yeah.
of a heightened level. It's beyond I just need to sleep or I need a break, then you'll be fine. Because that's not what's going to help you be fine. You need
Yeah.
systems, you need policies, you need structure, and you need more long-lasting and sustainable support.
I love that you say you need systems and policies in place, which takes us to the next question, especially with the employees. Like you say, they say to their higher ups, "I'm exhausted. I've got a lot on my plate." But then they
Yeah.
initially or inevitably take that knock and go, "Well, you've been a bad performer," and that's what they sit with. Which brings me to my next question: employee wellness as a strategy, not a perk. Okay. You are so deeply involved with employee wellness at an organizational level, Thuli. From your perspective,
Yes.
why should leadership teams see wellness as a strategic priority rather than a nice to have HR initiative?
I love this question because more than anything, what I love to say when I talk to the various organizations, NGOs, private companies, entities, associations, etc., what I always like to emphasize is that employee wellness is not exclusive of leaders. What I've seen in experience and interacting with leaders is that they actually feel nobody cares for them. So what we witness as an employee here is the pressure from above that they're experiencing. And instead of, again, emotional intelligence, self-regulation, time management, policy systems in place, right? What we see is a reactiveness coming down on somebody else because you haven't learned that interpersonal skill and leadership from a trauma-informed or at-risk perspective, rather, is the language I like to use. The at-risk perspective is not what's being applied. It's just this is a demand, where's the answers, tell me why this isn't done. And you're not even checking in. Like, you're absent the whole month.
Mm.
And then where's this? Where's that? Where are you expecting these answers to come from?
Yeah.
Now I'm also realistic. Leaders are not the same. Personalities are not the same, nor characters and the like. So I don't also encourage where if you know you're not a people person, like you're a more business, get stuff done, let's get to the bottom of it. Don't overextend yourself to do something that's not really going to work, because now you're going to traumatize everybody with one-on-one contact with you.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
hire well, delegate, share the responsibility. There are people under you. What is their role? And offering them the support they need to sufficiently execute their role. And when you do that, when they give you feedback, you have the idea of what's happening. If you don't have that compassion aspect of how the kids, how's that? Get somebody else to be able to be like, okay, before the meeting starts, guys, just checking in on everyone. How's everyone doing? So and so, how's your kid? I know you recently had a kid. Oh, I'm sorry for your loss. This happened. All those kind of things. You've got somebody else who has that aspect covered, and then you can get down to business. But what we often find in occupational spaces is the business is always the business, as if the people who are providing this work step aside.
Yeah.
Now, these senior, bigger billionaires might say, but this is why AI is better, because it's
Yeah.
not human. But here's the thing, the data from AI comes from individuals who submit reports. So
Mm.
actually, it's informed by these human experiences, and those
Yeah.
should not be shifted aside, but perhaps strategically applied through this employee wellness strategy. So it's not just about performance basis, but it's about making sure the individual who does the performance does it well. Because the occupational roles we're in are just that. They're a role, they're performative. But beyond that, I am an individual. And without individual capacity, I cannot perform.
Yeah. That's so important that you say that as well. I mean, I myself had experiences from previous organizations that I was with, and due to the lack of emotional intelligence, you saying
Yeah.
to a higher up, this is not going to work, or this is what I'm faced with, and then almost having a voice is interpreted
Yep.
as there's conflict going on here. We need
Yeah.
to try and, silence this worker because he's going to create conflict amongst the rest of us due to the lack of
Yeah.
emotional intelligence from the higher up. So, which brings
True.
me perfectly to the next question, creating psychologically safe workspaces. If you could give
Yes.
healthcare leaders and managers a simple blueprint, okay, what are the three practical things they can start doing this month to create more psychologically safe and emotionally supportive workplaces?
Connect is the number one. Connect. So connection will look like the check-ins. So again, these check-ins, this is not about compassion. You're not a therapist. I get that and I respect that. But if you are having an element of connecting bi-weekly with your team, you have an idea of how well things are going and where the gaps are. It's also about how we review things. We speak about the SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Basically do that twice a month. By end of month, you should be getting closer to your goals because you put out fires before they start, disintegrating into the space. Also acknowledge. Part of connection includes acknowledgement. More than anything, what I hear a lot of when I do my data and my research and interactions with employees, I'm providing them support services that I'm not seen, I'm not recognized, I'm not acknowledged. And this
Mm.
isn't about putting a person on a pedestal, but it's about acknowledging that, okay, this was the task, this was the timeline, it was done before time, it was done within time, it was done well in time, there is feedback from the client. So those kind of things help encourage a person to keep going. It motivates them to understand that their contribution within this organizational environment is valued. So connection is really important. Those kind of things come in handy. The second one would be strategy. I
Hmm.
think more often than not, dictatorship is not always going to be great, okay? It serves its purpose. It's not about everybody's view counts. Technically, it should, but again, remember we said we delegate. What you don't have time to actually do yourself, the people under you can help gather that information. The main thing is often you're suggesting something from up here, but the people down here have a different perspective. So you don't maybe care about hearing what that is. So these people in the middle with these ones need to figure out what that information is on the ground so that people also feel a part of the community around the systems and strategies that are coming forth. And perhaps if managers were to open their ear to hear, not as a form of judgment, but as a form of guidance from the people who provide the service, the turnaround time would be a lot quicker as well. So it's important to connect. It's always also important to have a realistic strategy that is all inclusive of all views. And I think the third element is rest, specifically for them as leaders. Again, part of where the pressure comes from is that they're burning out and they're not even aware. You are as valuable as the employees you advocate for, you support, and you're in charge of. You need rest. And like, but if I'm resting, who's going to do the work? That's the thing. You can't do the work if your mind is not able to think and process. That's what rest is. So I like to reintroduce rest as a reset. Reflect, evaluate, and assess. The S is strategy. So just reviewing what is the current strategy, has it worked, what's the new strategy that probably needs to be brought in, and T is timelines. You are recreating in your break time what's working, what's not working for you as a leader and within your team or within your organization so that you're able to move forward. But where are you going to get the time to do that if Thuli is constantly barging in your office? This isn't working. The printer's not working. That's not happening. Da, da, da,
Yeah.
because you're still a part of the system. But if you step aside of it, you'll be able to reconnect yourself with where am I going? Am I still doing this well? Is the career still at par? And as well as also the aspect of personally connecting with your people, resetting. Hey, I focus so much on work. This is time to now focus on my wife, my husband, my partner, whatever that looks like for you, my children, whatever that may look like for you. It's about having that opportunity to connect with your employees and your family, reset. Rest is a strategy, not a waste of time. And without it, what you're not willing to give your body an opportunity to rest on, your body will demand, and it's not friendly when it does it.
Yeah.
And again, strategy. Strategy is important. We can't do anything without having a clear intention. It makes sure everyone is a part of the way forward.
I love that. So connect, be realistic, and ensure rest. I love that. I love that. Let's move on to the
Absolutely.
role of storytelling and speaking to you. You are also a keynote speaker. How has sharing
True.
stories, in your own words and others, with consent, of course, helped shift mindsets around trauma, healing, and wellness in the corporate and healthcare spaces?
Oof. Um, it's a pity. What I think I might do is I'll send you just a few what's it? What's the word? Testimonials from
Testimonials.
some
Yeah.
clients. But yeah, some of the interesting things I've heard is how through this work, I'm able to understand how to use my voice strategically. You touched on that whole aspect around, from personal experience. I've also been there, by the way. I think it's probably where the passion really comes from. Also, I'm like, I get it, but here's how we can do it better.
Yeah.
Because I've been there and of course recorrected with those people, and we're all now la da da with each other. They respect me, I respect them, and life's moved on and we've moved into different spaces. But there's a testimonial that came across that said, I now understand how to use my voice and use it strategically. Others are, I now am able to, with that voice, be able to lead well in my home as a father, as a husband, and as a leader within a religious community. Another one I've heard of is the tone. So I have a coaching turn in my delivery, like multiple, learnings from the background here I've applied to mold me into this delivery to my audience. And they pick up that coaching tone and they find that, with that, it really encourages them. I keep psychotherapy quite pragmatic. It's not just a theory or somewhere in the sky, but it's about what can I do now? The
Mm,
probing questions of, okay, what are you willing to do differently? What's the practicality? What does that practically look like for you? And guiding them. Those self-reflective tasks of one mentioned that, oh, they really like the task activities that I give them. And I've been advised to actually start having them as a mini little workbook of the inner campus. So with that, what I've taken is the concept of a campus, north, south, east, west, and it guides you of where you're going. And so an inner campus would be something we use seasonally every 3 months, where what does north look like? I'm doing well if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not doing well if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm willing to negotiate and be flexible and accommodate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm not negotiating and flexing on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anything in between is either you going too far off on the end or you are still within adaptability, because we need to remain flexible, because being rigid is not going to get you far.
mm,
So those kind of feedbacks have been things that they found are helpful. The tools, the self-reflective tasks, the tone of delivery, the manner of hearing and openness. I believe in hearing the client from their lens and not trying to take them through my own personal lens. Yes, I have professional expertise and experience, and they do come through, but I'm always invested and curious about, but what is that? What is that like for you? Yes, many people have gone through what you've gone through, but your unique experience is unique to you. What does that feel like to you in your nervous system? I teach a lot about the nervous system work. I do a lot of research around neuroscience as well, because it speaks again to the nervous system. And the
mm,
more aligned we are with our bodies, the better we get at actually decision making.
mm.
Because sometimes cognitively, we're not fully present in understanding that I don't feel safe here, but our bodies will tell us with that resistance, I'm not doing what I know I should be doing. Maybe I need rest. I might be not safe there. It's a variety of things. So learning to listen to your body, and your emotions are not weapons formed against you, but if they're not processed and they're not acknowledged, they can be. But when they are, they become tools that help guide and serve you.
I love this. I can actually hear the passion just emanating from you, and it's felt like a bit of a therapy session. So thank you for that one. Finally, Tuli, what's your message to healthcare professionals and employees out there?
Um, to my fellow healthcare professionals, we matter. Okay. We give so much of ourselves, especially in our 20s and our 30s. The 40s need a shift. We need to realign, rebalance, and navigate spaces, and staying open to also delegate and share information so that others can also help us carry the load. You cannot save the world. It's something that we all have to remind ourselves of. Um, but you do your best to make sure you're presenting as your best self while you do it. And the only way to do that is make sure you incorporate rest as a key strategy. So that's for healthcare professionals. And for the employees and leaders in the world, they are human beings in the environment, and that's why there's conflict. It's different personalities and different characters coming into one space, which should come then, the strategy, come together towards a common and specific goal. But if you're pulling in one direction and another's pulling in a different direction, we're not going to be able to hear each other. And so it's important to learn to sit and listen.
Mm,
Listen to what the other person is saying. You might learn something from there, and that's why that connection aspect comes in. Connection isn't always about now we're going to be besties at the end of it, but connection means I have a difference in opinion to what you're saying, and I'm willing to hear your view. Like, show me what you see. I might not see it that way, but let's try and
yeah.
let's move it forward. Not always personalized things that are happening in the workplace. Again, easy for me to say sitting from here, but also not easy for me to say, because having lived through that experience myself and guiding a series of people who go through those kind of experiences to date, I find that when we over personalize, because we're so overly invested in the workplace without a life outside, is where the imbalance comes in. Because now that, how dare you not pay attention to me? So leaders, employees have a life outside of work. It is a role you play. It pays the bills. Yes, sometimes it doesn't pay enough of them, but it pays some bills, okay? And it is important that you enjoy the space that you're in, but when you're not enjoying it, remind yourself, why am I here? and what am I contributing here? Not all leaders will know how to tell you, so learn to tell it to yourself. And again, that also applies to the leaders in charge of, employees. Not everyone is going to tell you the value of what you bring. So remember to take that reset time to reflect and see what is it that you are doing and that's going well.
I love it. I love it. Said so well and so inspiring. There you have it. Thuli, thank you so much for the powerful and honest conversation. You've reminded us that wellness and healthcare, or wellness for healthcare rather professionals, isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. And that, emotionally healthy teams don't just happen by accident. So thank you so much for your inputs today on MediMag ZA, the podcast.
Thank you so much. Wishing you and your team as well all the best. And thank you so much for holding spaces like these. We really do need them.
Thank you so much, Thuli.